Greetings once again. It's a pleasure to be back and it's a pleasure to have these conversations with you. So for today, I'm going to talk about opportunities in the clinical oncology pharmacy. And when I'm looking at it from a clinical oncology pharmacy, it's not only the clinical work that is entailed in that particular domain of practice, but rather what are the opportunities and what are the needs that are existing in these spaces, where as professionals and as pharmacists we can play a critical role, and that critical role is anchored on how do we ensure that our patients get the best care, how do we improve that care over time to ensure that in case we experience some challenges in the current moment, then we cover up and actually ensure that those challenges do not happen for the next generation of patients, and therefore we are course correcting as we move along to improve care and ensure there are more efficiencies and more improvements in terms of the care that patients get access to, and that would be a critical success. So this discussion actually and this particular session that I'm sharing now is informed by a discussion that I had with one senior colleague and senior pharmacist who is an oncology pharmacist and is working at the premier referral hospital in the country as an oncology pharmacist. And some of the touch points or some of the key drivers that I speak from that conversation are the one that I'm kind of actually delving into and outlining as some of avenues where, as a young pharmacist, as a young professional working in the healthcare space with an interest in clinical oncology pharmacy, then you can play a critical role, and this role can be cutting across different domains, but then it is about what particular interest do you have, what value can add into that space, and what are the gaps that are currently existing in that domain. So once we identify the gaps, which are actually from the discussion that we've had, then what can you do in these spaces? Then once I've shared what you can do, then the next thing will be upon you as an individual to ask yourself, am I going to tackle this challenge? Am I going to apply myself to be able to transform care in that particular domain? So one of the key things that we acknowledge is the burden of cancer is growing, and as much as the burden of cancer is growing, then there's need for more care and more interventions to be delivered. The challenge is there's no clarity on who is going to deliver that, and that is upon you as an individual to give yourself the challenge and say, for every single patient who is going to suffer in the local community, I'm going to play a role to ensure they can access the care that they need. And my role will be in which and each of the following domains. So that is the first thing. You have to make a commitment and you have to be willing to walk the journey with your patients. That is number one. Number two, with the growing burden, then it means more patients are going into hospitals, and these patients need to be taken care of. They need medicines for them to be treated in terms of their chemotherapy management and all that. But also, before even initiating the therapy, there's the patient evaluation, the parameters that are looked into. And when you're looking at the patient scores, there are different factors. So as a clinical oncology pharmacist, that is a role where you can actually say, for me, I'm going to look at what are the key clinical indicators for a patient to confirm whether they are good to be initiated on a particular treatment line or not suited for that treatment line, or we need to delay and actually make improvement in their parameters, including the blood cell level, the hemoglobin levels and all that, so that they are in a good place where we can administer the therapy that is needed for them. So those are some of the key things that you could look at in terms of just delivering care as a clinical pharmacy, applying your clinical pharmacy knowledge from physiology, biochemistry, and the clinical pharmacology that you've learned about that particular drug and the line of treatment that you want to put that patient into. Beyond that kind of area of practice, which is just general clinical care for the patient, the additional opportunities, and these opportunities are the one that I'm actually more keen about. As we look at it, one, for the patients that are being treated, we know that anti-cancers, most of them are very toxic. And that toxicity then means we need to be able to monitor for adverse events, adverse outcomes, and adverse drug reactions as well. So when we're looking at all these potential adverse events, then there's need for proper recording, reporting, and actually investigation of these. That is where the pharmacovigilance component of it comes in. Unfortunately, because of the challenges that we're having in workforce, you find the pharmacists responsible, the pharmaceutical technologists, the physician, or the nurses responsible. They would document it, yes, and they would probably identify some of these problems and actually intervene to resolve them. But the question is, do we have these structured and collated and actually reported to the respective agencies to ensure that we have a robust pharmacovigilance system with regard to oncology products? Maybe not. And when that doesn't happen, then it means if patient A today suffered from an adverse drug reaction which had not been documented and was not expected, it might be re-experienced again in a patient B or in a patient C and even patient Z if that reporting has not been done and further investigations made. But the only way we can secure our future and ensure that our patients are safe and taken care of is by reporting and by managing that reporting system. How does it happen? That is where you as a professional, if you have an interest in technology, in IT and all that, can you optimize a digital tool that actually when you're a patient or even a physician or even a nurse identify an adverse drug reaction, can they report it, and what are the key reportable metrics that you need to look at? An identifiable patient, an identifiable product that has been used, and an adverse outcome that has been identified. When we can collect that and actually capture it in terms of a digital reporting system, then that means that technology will help us resolve this problem and ensure that we have a repository. And then that repository then needs to go to a particular analysis point, and that is where the pharmacovigilance specialists and pharmacoepidemiologists need to be able to review that data and see what changes do we need to make, what improvements do we need to make to ensure that we're serving our patients better. And that is specifically on adverse events, adverse drug reactions, and adverse outcomes management, reporting, and reviewing. And that is critical. So you need to ask yourself, are you going to play a role in identifying them at the clinical level? Are you going to develop a tool to capture them? Are you going to be at the analysis and the synthesis point? Or are you going to be the person to make inferences on what interventions need to be made based on the data that has been collected? That is a critical bit. So you need to ask yourself, that is an opportunity, and that opportunity is available for you to harness and actually tap into and deliver solution. Then beyond that, the other bit is access. And we know that access to anti-cancer medicines is a challenge, and actually oftentimes you'll see in the respective groups, in respective forums, people asking for one drug or the other, and oftentimes they're not available in the market. So how can we ensure that access is available? And that is where, as a professional, you can now look at it as, can I be the person to initiate a patient access program for oncology care? And if that access program is going to be designed for which particular disease areas, for which particular patient group that I'm going to look into, who are the people who are manufacturing and supplying this product, what are the financing solutions that are available? And that is where we look at it from the socio-economic drivers of care and what solutions you can design in that space. And it's important that we look at that, because if these medicines are not available for our patients, then they won't use them. If they're not using them, then that means we are not addressing the access to care for patients suffering from cancers. And I think universal healthcare coverage means everybody should have access, including with the people suffering from cancers. So how do we design these access solutions for them? That is on one end. But beyond just the access solution is also part of our responsibility to see how do we ensure that even the distribution model is working and efficient. And what are the reimbursement models that are available? Are we negotiating and advocating for some of these anti-cancers, especially for the high risk and more prevalent cancers, to be enlisted in the essential medicines list? Because once they're in the essential medicines list, then it means the reimbursement models that are activated from the national insurance scheme, from the private insurance schemes, they will be able to reimburse because it's already among the essential medicines list, and that improves the quality of care for us. And that is something that we need to look into. Another key thing that is coming up, there's advancements, and these advancements are around, we're talking about biological products and biotherapeutics. Beyond biologics and biotherapeutics, we also have advancements where we're looking at gene therapies, precision medicine, and all those kind of technologies. These are emerging technologies. There's so much potential in them that is being proposed and being looked into, but the question is, how do we validate and actually approve that these technologies are working? We need to be able to generate our local contextualized evidence. So are you going to get into clinical trial to try these new therapies in our local context? If you're able to do that, that would be a win for you. And that is something that is going to shape the future, because as much as these new technologies are coming, we would want to benefit from them if they're as promising as we are made to believe they are. So the only way to confirm that is by trying them in our local context, so get into the clinical trial place. Two, if that is not the case, you can be the person who actually reviews the data that has been generated and looking at the pharmacogenomic and pharmacogenetic data and variabilities in terms of that data to see whether there's that correlation. And when you can generate a correlation in terms of impact and value, then you can build a case for the health economic evaluation reports, the pharmacovigilance and safety reports that can be applied, and even look at how to ensure that we expedite the regulatory approval for these products in our local context. And if you can be somebody to facilitate such kind of conversations, then that is going to be a win for us to ensure the medicines are actually validated to be safe, effective, and of the right quality. They're being registered and being available in the market. We have a robust pharmacovigilance system, and we're making them in terms of listing them for the essential medicines list or so. Therefore, the reimbursement model is going to be in place. And that has been done by the people who believe in what potential these products have to us and how we can take advantage of that possibility, how we can drive it with patients, and to ensure that our patients are getting value. And one thing that I just forgot actually, at the adverse events or so, beyond just the adverse events, We know that some of the oncology medicines are being used in the houses. There is the tablets and all that, self-administered medications. We realize that this being toxic product, then we need to have a patient engagement component, or even the caregiver engagement component. And what do I mean by this? You have an anti-cancer that has got some toxic effects that just by exposure to them, you have a higher risk of even getting more cancers for the people who are not already ill or so. So how do you manage that? Imagine I have a child, and the child in the home with me is going to be using one anti-cancer medicine, but their siblings will also be exposed in the sense that they share utensils, they live together, they eat together, they probably shower with the same equipment, they share clothes and all that. So how do I manage that risk? It is by you as a pharmacist just looking at, can I be the lead in patient engagement and caregiver engagement programs in any anti-cancer oncology clinic or oncology facility in the country, to ensure that the parents, the caregivers, the patients coming who are taking oral anti-cancer products understand the risks that are posed by these medications. That is one. Understand how they can mitigate and reduce the risks of exposure to other people who are not suffering and who are not using the same medication, so that these adverse events and other toxic effects that might be cascaded into the community are handled. The other bit is around management of the waste. After you've taken your tablets, you've taken your capsules from the different blister boxes and all that, how are you disposing that component? And that is another bit that comes into cancer care, because if you're using them and you're disposing them haphazardly, you're increasing the carcinogenic risk and toxicity in the local environment, meaning you're even increasing the burden of risk of cancer, which we are trying to reduce and manage. So those are some of the key things that we need to ask ourselves. How are we going about it? How are we doing it? And then as much as we're doing that, we document effectively and make improvements. Over time, we will be able to ensure that we are safeguarding our patients. And if we can safeguard our patients by intervening in the clinical care, managing adverse events, and ensuring the pharmacovigilance and monitoring systems are robust, that is a win for us. Ensuring we have access solutions and access programs. And if not access program, then we are actually advocating for integration into the essential medical list, so that the reimbursement models can effectively work to ensure that patients have access. And most importantly, engaging the patients and the caregiver community to be ensure that at the end of the day, they're getting maximum value out of what they need. And the last thing, education. All the physicians, all the practitioners, all the nurses who are taking care of cancer patients are educated. Who is educating them? How are we integrating our value as educators? Do you have a unique approach to how cancer care can be improved? Can you offer a modular course? Can you be enlisted as a lecturer at a particular university to train on oncology, on pharmacokinetics, pharmacogenetics? All these parameters are actually, you understand the pharmacological background of the medicines. And therefore, by training and by enlightening more people, you are building the next portfolio. Because one of the key bits that is clear is we have deficit in health workforce, and especially those who are equipped and qualified to offer specialized cancer care. And as much as that is the case, there's somebody who is already interested, let's say for example in management of leukemias only, blood cancers. Can you specialize on that? And specialization, you might go for further studies, or you can learn from the literature that is available. And as you're learning about it, facilitate and have structured partnerships with pharmaceutical companies who are developing products in these product lines. If you're able to do that and you're able to get those scholarships, get those learning opportunities, and be an expert in that area, you're going to revolutionize care, because you are learning, you're being an expert, and you're applying that knowledge and training other people to be better professionals. If that happens, then we'll be able to mitigate and actually control the burden of cancer that we're seeing in our local communities. And that is what we hope for. So if you have an interest in oncology pharmacy, this is a way that you can contribute into that space. And I'm hoping this video helps you understand. This video helps you take perspective and actually understand that there's more to what you can do beyond just going to the pharmacy, dispensing the medicine, going to the pharmacy, reviewing the treatment sheet, and leaving at that. There are other alternatives. Challenge yourself, take these opportunities, and take the action. And from that interview, one of the key things is ask. If you don't ask, you'll never get it. And the way to ask is, who is doing their work in that particular space? When you're working under them, are you asking questions? Are you probing? Are you willing to learn and actually advance your career? Because if you're able to learn, you're able to ask questions and seek guidance and mentorship, you'll be able to get it. And I hope this helps you. Thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the conversation, subscribe to the channel, share, comment with your perspectives on what you think we can do better. And at the end of the day, let's advance the practice of pharmacy and the future of pharmaceutical and healthcare care delivery. Thank you so much.